podcast. Súbele volumen. Conversation with the people who were with me. In the world TV. Carlos Tonight. Historias de un reportero. Carlos Tonight. Dale que viene lo bueno.
Everyone, welcome to Carlos Tonight. Thank you so much for being here. My guest this week is an author and a music producer who has worked with such notable artists such as Peter Gabriel, Bobby Brown, Ozzy Osbourne, and Snoop Dogg. He is connecting to us right now from the UK. Steven Machat, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm great. How are you, Carlos?
I'm doing good.
You good?
You know, yeah, it's great talking to you. Thank you for the opportunity. I want to start with,
I saw your Cubs shirt.
What'd you say?
I saw your Cubs shirt on that intro.
Oh, yeah.
When you were owning your Cubs jersey.
It's funny because when I was in San Diego promoting the All-Star game, and then I had to go connect with my Chicago Cubs because that's where I grew up. So
yeah,
there you have it.
It's very cool.
Yeah. So
they're playing my team this weekend.
Oh yeah.
They're playing the Yankees. But anyway, back to the podcast. I'm ready.
All right. So you grew up surrounded by music. Your father was a entertainment lawyer and represented artists such as Phil Spector and the Rolling Stones. How much of an influence did he have on your career and the man you are today?
A lot. But for that, I would have taken a different path. I was like born into it and I had no choice. And all my father would tell me is while I was venturing in, I wanted to go into politics in Tennessee. I went to law school at Vanderbilt and I was setting it up to do that. And when he realized I was serious, he's like, "You're not doing that." And he got me involved in Charlie Daniels, the management. He got me involved in Capricorn Records, and with Phil Walden, I ended up involved with the Jimmy Carter election campaign. It's funny, I was a Tennessee delegate for Jimmy Carter back in '76, and they made me a Cherokee Indian delegate because they didn't have any when they were making things politically correct.
Right.
And I could pass for an Indian. I could pass for a lot of different beans, right?
Right.
But it had a lot of influence.
That's great. Tell us about your role in helping nourish these artists that I mentioned earlier.
I use baseball as my example. You know, there's 9 positions, but you need a team win. You have the greatest home run hitter, and very rarely does it ever have a championship team. So what I did is I end up seeing the team, and when I was able to gain people's full trust, I become like the manager, and I plug myself in where there's an opening, where someone's injured, someone's hurt. I know all the avenues of marketing and promotion, publicity. I love music. I hear things. I see things. I know how to communicate, I believe. And I could sit and one thing I could definitely do is I could pump you up to get you to try to go through that wall. So I sit there like the team coach, and it's like, before we go on the road, I'll tell you whatever you need. So you get out there and you're a phoenix, you're a fire, you're ready to go, you're ready to light up. And, and I'll help calm you down too. I love people, and I read energy and I feed off it.
Did you ever imagine that these artists would go on to do, bigger and better things and turned out to be the artists they became?
I saw what I do with the artists, to give you the best answer I can in the short seconds that we have. I help them make their dreams come true. And if they believe that they could do it, and if they prove to me that they'll dedicate the time, the energy, and the wherewithal to doing it, let's go. Because, sometimes and I'm not always right. No one is, and you meet artists that just can't get it together. I have an artist right now called Rox Revolt and the Velvets. My wife that I'm with right now, we restarted a record label, and it's part of the School of Sacred Knowledge. And I had this intuitivist, an artist that heard from beyond, and she wrote great songs, and she had a great band, but she was scared to go the full distance. And I couldn't get the album out of her in time because I was in England, and I decided I could promote rock and roll better here in England and then bring it back to the US. and I couldn't get the album out of her. And I had a single going on here, and we didn't have the album. So it just fell apart, and now I'm trying to figure it out again.
Yeah.
So we're redoing it. But what I'm saying is I thought she had the energy to go to distance. And at that moment in time, she didn't. You know, you both have to have the energy.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
you go make it work.
Right. How much time did you spend with these artists? And do you have any cool stories to share?
You pick one and I'll give you a story. I'm a walking
How about
story.
Snoop Dogg?
With Snoop Dogg? You want a great story?
Yeah.
Let's make it 2002, 2003, right? Somewhere in there. He's with Daz Dillinger. They're in Ohio. They're doing shows. Daz is, his warm-up. And I was handling Daz, and I get a call that the bus in Ohio got pulled over. Okay. Now they're in Ohio, so let's make that Central Time. Where was I then? I was in LA. So they got pulled over at like 5:30 in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, which in LA would be about 3 o'clock. So I answered the phone and I'm like, "What's up, man? We need you." I go, "What do you need me for?" "We got pulled over. There's a cop in here." We told him that we wanted to talk to our lawyer. So I said, "I'm the lawyer." I said, "What is he doing?" He says, he pulled us over and we have pot on the bus. And I'm like, he's surprised. So they said to me, I said, "Put him on the phone." He's, "Hi." He said, "I'm Steven Machat." I said, "What are you doing?" He says, "Your group here has some marijuana." I said, "You mean pot?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Okay." And I said, "How can I help you?" He said, "That's illegal." So I said to him, "Are you a parent?" He goes, "What's that to you?" I said, "It's important for a minute." He said, "Yeah." And I said to him, "Do you have kids?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "So what are you going to do? You're going to arrest that band, Snoop Dogg and the Dog Pound, because they were in tour. Corrupt was with them too." And I'm like, "You're going to arrest them for having pot? Everyone knows they have pot." And he says to me, "Well," I said, no, listen. If you think it's a crime for them to have the pot, take the pot, get yourself some autographs, throw it away, and go home to your family. Why would you want to sit and waste 7-8 hours arresting a guy that I'll bail out of jail? Take away what you think is wrong and then move on. And I'll have them sign an autograph or two for you. That's what happened.
Wow. Do you have a favorite artist that you've worked with?
I've done this since, say, 1972.
Yeah.
And, it's like you're a Cub fan. Who's your favorite Cub? Right? I'm usually because we have it in common. You can't answer me. I don't know. You love them all. So what you do is like, am I right? My favorite Cub was Ernie Banks. Ernie Banks. I mean, I loved him. I'm older. It's like, okay, Ernie Banks, hey, can we play two? But it depends. The 70s I had one, the 80s I had one, the 90s I had one, the zeros I had one. Today I have one, tomorrow I may have none. But I love people, and I love, if I could create energy with you, I'm all smiles. And if our energy blows up in our face, so be it.
How does it feel knowing that you had a part of these artists' success?
The artist success gave me the success to become the man I am, because I've had many miss, and a lot of times things went wrong, things that I just couldn't stop. Like when Randy Rhoads died in the airplane with Ozzy Osbourne, I had nothing to do with it, but I knew what they were doing. Yeah. So how do I stop it? And then the worst story I could possibly give anyone is my son was managing Young Lean. And I'll teach all your listeners something. Even though people speak English to you and we're speaking English, that's your native language. That's my native language. What does that mean? That means you and I think in English. Young Lean was from Sweden. The band was from Sweden. My son was young. And we had a co-manager who was Swedish, who was able to communicate with them. And Young Lean got sky high on drugs that the Swedish man bought him that we didn't know about. And what happened is he went crazy. And all of a sudden, when he went crazy, my son just didn't know what to do. And he panicked and he drove himself to his death. And it's like, I didn't know what to do. But all I did know what to do was to help everybody else. Because what just happened to me, It happened to me. Now what am I going to do? I'll
Yeah.
figure it out. I've got to get beyond that. I just got to suck it in and help everyone out that I can because I'm the elder,
Mhm.
and it's a horrible thing,
Absolutely.
uncertain death and to go bury your son. My son was burnt alive, to then take he didn't have a choice. I mean, I have a choice. Am I cremating my son or am I burying my son?
Right.
So I cremated him. I tried to learn how to heal,
Mhm. And I
and
can
it's
imagine,
just,
imagine that you're still in the process of healing, right?
you never stop.
Yeah.
But I'll tell your audience a funny story. It's a nice story. It's a sweet story. So anyway, I put up on Facebook on April 2015 that my son is hovering around us. And unfortunately, he passed in a rock and roll accident. And a woman named Debbie, she saw it. I've known her since 1964. And we graduated high school together in 1970. And so I didn't speak to her again until I got that message from her. And all I knew about her was she was a young running around with a guitar,
Mhm.
singing Jesse Colin Young songs. And it was cute. She was cute. So anyway, I respond to her and she sent me a message and she said to me, my son died and I understand what you're going through. And if I ever could be of assistance, if I could ever help you, please let me know. She sent me a personal message. So, okay, I got her personal message. And when the United States Senate, we got together and we reconnected. We told stories about each other. We really didn't talk to each other in school. Maybe a nod, depending on whether your part in your head was. If it was on your right, you nodded right, or nodded left, or whatever. And then COVID came, and I was living in LA. I went to Miami to get my cataracts removed from my eyes, and I was doing a movie. I was helping edit a movie, and I'm sitting in a car with a woman that was boring me. Her and her husband were helping me on the editing. So I have ADD, I admit it, nothing wrong with it. So I started looking at Facebook and up comes her picture and I heard it from beyond. And it said to me, if you don't communicate with her now, it's over. So
Yeah.
I told her, and here we are. We opened up SSK Records. We got married May 15th. And we're going to live our lives until we part from planet Earth, which is what
Yeah.
my new book's about. Where
Yeah.
you go when you part.
Let's talk about that. You have almost a dozen books that you've published, from the history of viruses to Gods, Gangsters, and Honor, and the recent one, We've Got to Get Out of This Place. And so in this latest book, you ask those questions that a lot of people are wondering. And so let's start there. The first one is who we are.
Yep. Who are you? And while I'm asking you who you are, who am I? And what's the difference between you and I? What
Right.
you and I are, there is no difference except we become a special, unique, and extraordinary particle that came out of the same wholeness that I call consciousness. And the consciousness, so you get what my opinion of it is, comes from the supreme being. It does not come from any Christ. It doesn't come from any God of any of these imperial religions or imperial governments that sit and make you live in a matrix. They give you reasons, the answer to your question, to hate your neighbor, hate your brother, hate your sister, steal, steal, steal. It's called capitalism. Get everything you can instead of let's go make art together. That's what Earth is all about. It's in the word. Earth is the only planet that does not have the name of some form of other god, right? All of them, all the other 8 planets are gods. And Earth tells you the secret. You're a consciousness that incarnated into this body form that I'm looking at as you see me. And you came here to experience life in a physical form. You were able to touch each other, taste food. You're able to do things you can't do as a consciousness. And the consciousness is what separates us from every other being here on planet Earth. No other being has a consciousness. No other being could put together the knowledge I'm giving you and vocally express it. Although I do believe, and in my school of sacred knowledge, species and talk to each other. So one of the lectures that we give there is I have a friend that he made music with me, Steve Scully, and we put out the Singing Life of Plants. And what we did with it is we recorded the plants talking to each other, making noise underground that you and I can't hear. And it's a fascinating thing, and it's probably the most meditative music I've ever made.
I think the one that touches me the most is the question, why are we here? Do you get that?
Why are we here?
Yeah.
That's been my, okay, you wake up, you're looking at yourself, you look in the mirror and you go, why am I here? What am I here to do? Well, you're here to figure out why you wanted to be here. Once while traveling across a space being made out of a matrix where there's gravity and you're being pulled down, you're being pulled out of the other side, and you're being pulled into this matrix called our universe in planet Earth. And all of a sudden you're sucked down here and you're like, okay, I forgot that I could fly. I'm now locked inside this body. I can't close my eyes, and just disappear, and it's like, and I'm not the only one that thinks like this. There are so many fairy tales that are all about this, and not Fairy, which is what the Vatican did. It's Faire. It's a French word. It means enchanted. These are enchanted tales. So you're like, okay, what am I here to do? Well, you're there to discover what your wants and what your needs are all about. You've separated and you've become an ego. Okay? You're an individual ego. An ego, ego means you've edged God out. You've edged out the supreme being, and you want to have a solo life where you come here to live and be God. Now, most people can't do it. So what they do is they come here and live and become sheep. They work for somebody else. They will be, instead of living their destiny, they will live and become someone's fate. Their fate is to live someone else's destiny. And then what happens, your body decides I've had enough and it stops working. You're released from your body. And that's what I tell you in the book. And I've studied my whole life this, and I've lived, unlike, okay, I'm a United States Senate. I'm going to go visit the Ukraine. Well, what are you going to do in the Ukraine? Why are us taxpayers paying for you to go there? They don't even know the word means nowhere. It means without borders, but anyway, more importantly, I go into places and I will sit and get into your culture. I will sit and discover your version of God. I'll sit and discover the history of how this imperial government running your nation became the government it is today. And what was it yesterday? I want to know what they teach the kids. I want to know what you're going to teach your kids. I want to know what happened to love, the world that we were supposed to come into. Yeah. Because we never understood before we incarnated here that even though you and I are looking at each other, all right, and we're seeing light, and you're smiling and I'm smiling, or I'm trying to. Anyway, I'm smiling. My light, your light could be darkness to someone else. It's duality. The trick is to see and live in light, to share your truths. And if someone doesn't see your truth, get over it. Don't beat them up. Yeah, don't kill them. Right. The trick in life is to create a government that support you, the people, by the people and of the people, to give you health care and welfare, not to vote them in the government so you pay taxes to give them a job so they can tell you what to do. No. Now, it's about making love. And the question of life is, what is life all about? You're going to answer is love. You're going to discover love. And love is the answer to every basically philosophical question you could get. Right. What is the
love
answer?
Is good. Love is beautiful.
Yep.
The one big thing that a lot of people debate, and you mentioned this earlier, where do we go after we are released from our physical bodies at the moment of our death? What's your opinion on that?
It's in my book. And I told it to you in shorthand a second ago. Okay, you're now out of body. Okay, but you're still locked into this matrix called our universe. So call whatever you want. I call it the Earth Matrix. You're here. Yeah. You're hovering around and it's like, what happened to my body? And then you're living here in a time, and it's Act 16, it's Act 15 of the new book. Act 15 is reincarnation. And I give you the stories of reincarnation as been taught by the mystics and as much I could of the Hindu and the Buddhist thought processes that have been being built and built upon for 2,500 years. I've worked with Robert Thurman, who's basically the translator for the Dalai Lama and his Buddhist temple. I've been all over. Put out music from India and Pakistan. I got right in there. I wanted to know what they knew. I sat with many a yoga teachers, the elders. There's Yogi Bhajan, the Kundalini yoga, and his disciple Tej, who's my personal friend and my teacher. And I find something very interesting. Even though people know what I tell you, they're scared to believe it. Mm-hmm. Because what it is it's on you. When you get there, all I can tell you, and as simple as it sounds to you, try to forgive and just go. Your consciousness has no gravity unless you have want and a need. And if you have a want and a need, that's called karma. And if you have any gravity, you're staying right here in this dimension. And then I walk you through ancient tales. And I wrote it. I must have written 30 times to make it so we could all understand what I like. I once put out a movie of Mickey Mantle, and he was my hero. And the reason I throw this in the middle of this is I could never understand why he didn't become a manager. Mm-hmm. And he said to me, because it comes too easy to me and I can't teach it to you. When I did a Mickey Mantle home video, the first home video ever done. And it was a baseball player. What he taught me was, if something comes easy to me, my job is to convey it to you. I need to know what you know. So in the book, I tried to break it down. I had people question me. And it's all about karma. Let go of karma. Right. And then some of us have a need to help others. That's karma. So we're going to stay here and be the elders to guide you into the shining light. And the shining light is the path back home to the supreme being, where you go rest. That is until you have a want and need. Yeah. Because it's impossible. As long as there's electricity in you, you will have a want or a need. And we're the energy. We are a consciousness, as I've been saying, and I repeat it all the time. You have cells, okay? Your cell is made up of 3 parts. You have a proton that goes right. You have an electron that goes left. And then in the middle, there's the neutron. Well, something makes that body work. There's an electrical charge that lights up your body. You know something? It's you. Carlos, it's you. It's you, the individual. In my case, it's Steven, the individual. Mm-hmm. I have a want or a need, and the best thing I can teach people is, okay, I got thrown out trying to steal second base, but get up and dust yourself off and go back home and do it all again. Absolutely. Learn what you came here to learn. Go play it. Learn it, right?
Yeah. I can't wait to check out your book. If someone's interested in picking up your book, where can they go?
You could go to 3 places. You could go to anywhere books are sold, like Amazon or whatever, and just type in my name, Steven Machat, and it's StevenMachat. Or go to Steven, again, StevenMachat.com. Or if you want to come play with me, come visit me in the School of Sacred Knowledge.com. I've reopened the School of Sacred Knowledge that was shut in 530 AD by Emperor John Intus, if I said it right, who became the Byzantine emperor. They didn't want to have any competing theories other than what they and their churches told you. Mm-hmm. For you to get to heaven, you have to go through them. Mm. That's not true, my friends. For you to get to heaven, that's on you. Mm-hmm. And there's lessons and lessons, and it will take eons and eons. But you know something? You have life. And in the English language, we live in what's called the present. We're living in the now. And the word has a double meaning. The greatest gift you have is your life here in the present. If you worry about the past, you're living in your back. You're living, forgive me, in your ass. Mm-hmm. You're going to create worries you don't need. When you try to meditate, your mind doesn't want you to shut it off. Your mind is not your enlightenment. Your mind is the part, it's the computer. It's the part that tells your body parts what to do. And you do three things, my friends, or four, because I consider us all friends. You eat, and you have to eat living forms. We eat living forms. Why? I don't know. We haven't developed yet where we can give you the vitamins you need to keep your body going. Even a plant, you vegetarians, is a living form. And that plant makes the oxygen you and I breathe, and you and I breathe out the oxygen in a carbon dioxide form, which allows the plants to leave. Life is all duality. We share. Your heart breathes in the oxygen and it breathes out the carbon dioxide. And that's what we do. We live in a world based on sharing and loving. And you remember those rules. And understand, you're not going to win every game, whatever your games are. That's why my book, here's the cover. I show you it's a game.
Yeah.
There you
go.
I think.
We've got to get out of this place. I'll make sure to put that in the show notes so people can know about it. Hey, before I let you go.
I'd be on it. And the School of Sacred. Well, I was just going to finish real quick. The School of Sacred Knowledge. I have different intuitives who share with you their knowledge and their awareness. We're all mystics. And for you to ask questions that you just asked that we were doing, you're like everybody else, including myself. You want to know how you got here. Yeah. And you want to know how we get out of this place. And all you'll do is go to another matrix and you'll go home to the Supreme Being. It's a blessing.
Yeah, it is.
You were going to ask me something.
I was going to ask you before we go, there's a big movie coming out about Elvis this summer. Have you ever met him, and what was that like?
Yeah. All right. I met Frank Sinatra. It's in my book, God's Gangsters in Honor. All right. And I tell you how.
I believe you just froze. I don't know if you can hear me. But yeah, your screen froze. I'm not sure if you can still hear me or not.
Yeah, I heard you. Okay. He says to me, he sees me watching football, and he says to me, is that your sport? I said, no. I said, but I love it. He says, what's your sport? I go, baseball. He says to me, what's your team? I'm going to answer your question on Elvis in a minute. Sure. Because I'm going to get you there. So he says to me, what's your team? I go to Yankees. And he goes, mine too. And my father almost had a stroke. I said to him, Mr. Sinatra, when the Yankees played the Dodgers in that World Series, you put on a Dodger hat. And he looks at me very coyishly, and he says to me, son, I live in LA. I couldn't put on the Yankee hat. And then he looks at my father. He goes, I love him. And then we ended up having a conversation, and I like the guy. I like the guy a lot. And he's the guy that told me to go to the University of Miami, because he told me that as good looking as I am, if I go out to LA, I will never be able to afford the girl or to make the girl. And he looks at my dad. He goes, am I right? And my father goes, yeah, I didn't look at it like that. But yes, Steven, he's telling you the truth. He told me to go to Miami. I'll have a field day. And then 1972, I meet Elvis Presley at Madison Square Garden. And I go there with my then girlfriend, and I go with my mom and dad. And I'm watching everyone getting up and going nuts and this and that. And it's like, okay, great. So now we go backstage, and I'm ready to have a Frank Sinatra meeting with him, right? And this guy couldn't even talk to me. He just sat there, and he didn't really communicate with anybody. He wanted to be communicated with, and he would answer questions, but he would not engage you. And I found him to be a bore. And then what happened was, I believe he passed on August 9th, 1977, or somewhere there close. And I'm in LA. I had just taken the bar exam. I'm living with Leonard Cohen. And all of a sudden, my father comes in. He says, Steve, you're going to England. And I go, hey, Dad, am I going to England? He says, you're going to England because the man that we're eating breakfast with, Freddie Beanstalk, owns all the songs, or most of them, that Elvis Presley sang. Elvis Presley never wrote a note. By the same token, neither did Frank Sinatra. But anyway, what I went to England, and what they did is they made me put together the play that went on for about 32 years called Elvis. And I helped structure it. And it was so boring because all I did was take the copyrights out of one company into another company. And what happened was I got bored. I was having a great time in England. And I went to a restaurant with a man named David. And David's father was Don. And David got picked on by some people. And I just pulled whatever I pulled because I heard the higher powers to do it. And the next thing I know, Don called my father. My father and Don got into business with their two sons, David, who Don was in business. And my father and we ended up representing Jet Records. And I ended up becoming the business affairs and lawyer for a band called the Electric Light Orchestra.
Wow.
And that is my history.
Awesome.
That's what changed my life. And that's how it all happened.
All right. Thank you, Steven.
And their names were Don and David Arden. And the daughter was Sharon Arden. And that's how Sharon and I I was there and started Osbourne with Sharon because Don told me to do it. There's your whole story.
That's awesome. Well, thank you again for sharing your story and being here. I really do appreciate your time. Thank you, Steven.
I appreciate yours. And thank you. And thank you to your audience. And you take good care.